it just was not good to me. It was, in fact, it was pitiful. Hey, what's up you guys? My name's Mina. Welcome to my channel, Mina Reads, and today we are going to be doing my November and December wrap up. This will be a combination of those 2 months because I just completely kind of skipped the whole wrap up thing in November, but I'm back and better than ever. So yeah, we're going to talk about all the books that I've read in these past 2 months. It's kind of a lot, and it's a very mixed bag of like genres and vibes. So the first book that I read in November was Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRoe. So Her Soul to Take is the first book in the Souls trilogy, and it is about this girl named Ray and this demon Leon. Ray has recently moved back to her hometown, and she kind of has a YouTube channel that is like a paranormal YouTube channel about like ghost sightings, and she's a ghost hunter and all this good stuff. So she has moved back to her hometown, which is this really spooky, eerie kind of place. There's always some kind of like vaguely supernatural happenings. There's kind of like this haunted church, and she just feels like it's the perfect location to continue her education because she is a college student, and maybe revitalize her YouTube channel a bit. So she's investigating some of this spooky, creepy stuff that's going on, and there is a murder on the campus where she goes to school, and so she's like, this will be fucking perfect for my YouTube channel. And she ends up meeting this surly security guard who's trying to ward her off and stop her from doing this investigation. This surly security guard is actually a demon named Leon, and Leon is a demon who is like binded to this magical family, and they are like the wealthiest people in town, and they're also incredibly crazy, and they're a part of this cult that's devoted to this sea god that they are trying to reawaken. So they are sacrificing people, and Leon, since he is bound to them in some kind of like summoning circle, he just has to do whatever they tell him. And so he's trying to warn Ray off and protect her. They have this kind of like fake hate to love thing. There's kind of like this playful antagonism between them. This book is really interesting. It has like a horror romance kind of vibe, and it's really interesting. It's really spooky. It's really fun and atmospheric, and I liked it. It was a good time. I would give it like 3.5 stars because it was very entertaining. But I will say that this does really read like a horror movie, in the sense that the main character Ray, she's like that like stupid horror movie protagonist where you're yelling at her like, don't go in that room, like don't go into that creepy mansion, don't fucking do it, and then she does it anyway. That's Ray. And so she was just so like, she was so ridiculous at times that she irritated me. But I will say the only thing that I kind of disliked about the book is I felt like it was repeated a lot that the demon Leon was like really scary and super powerful and whatever, and I kind of didn't feel like that was displayed all that much. Like his power and his scariness, he didn't feel scary to me, and he didn't feel super powerful, so I wanted more showing in that area rather than telling. I also feel like this book is a little bit too long. This book, I think it's like 400 plus pages, maybe like 470 pages or something, and it just felt like it was a little bit too long, in my opinion. I felt like the pacing was off maybe a little bit in some places, but it still was enjoyable. And like I said, Ray, I found her like vaguely annoying. She kind of gave me like a bimbo Velma from like Mystery Incorporated kind of vibe, but like she was fun. I liked her, but she was also kind of irritating. It doesn't matter, it was still a good time. I enjoyed it for the most part. And then I went directly into the sequel, which is Her Soul for Revenge, and this one was one of my favorite books of the year. This shit was so good. So as I said, this is set in a particular town that is like really spooky and is controlled by these wealthy cult members basically. And so the main character of Her Soul for Revenge is Juniper Keynes, and Juniper, she was marked to be one of the like sacrifices for this sea god that they are attempting to raise from the dead or whatever. They throw her down a well, she escapes, and she spends like the rest of her teen years running away from her hometown and trying to get as far away from these people as possible. But she's kind of been marked by the magic that they've done to her, so she's constantly hunted by these like creepy demon creatures or whatever. And basically she's just like really interesting. She's a bit of a grifter, and she ends up catching the attention of this demon named Zane. And Zane is a soul collector, and he basically offers that if Juniper will sell him her soul, he will help her get revenge against these people who were out to sacrifice her, and they also ended up killing her younger brother. So she's getting her revenge against them for slights against her and her family, and he is going to help her out with this. This book is so fun. Like I said, the first book has this really good like horror atmosphere, and I just feel like the writing is really good and really interesting. So like if you're into kind of horror spooky-esque type stuff, I feel like you would enjoy this. And I feel like that thread continues in this. Like the writing is just really good, the prose, the atmosphere, the vibe, the spookiness is all there. It's all really good. But I love this one so much because I think that Juniper was just the baddest baddie to ever fucking be bad. She was that girl. I loved her so much. She was just an icon, a legend. She was the moment to me. She just was so fucking cool and so unhinged, and I loved her. And Zane, he perfectly matched her crazy, and they were just like the most wonderful partners in crime you've ever seen, and they were so fucking sexy. And this book is really kinky, but like it was very fun. I had a great time. It was wonderful, just on all levels. Like it gave me everything that I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be like this really gory, kind of scary, violent type of book because it's a revenge story, which it absolutely was. It also was really, really fucking sexy, and it also delivered on an emotional level. Like I really bought into the fact that Juniper and Zane were like deeply in love with and obsessed with each other, and it just fucking worked. This book was so good. I loved it. 5 stars, immaculate. Yeah, it was just everything. It was everything. I loved it so much. I can't say enough good things about it. It was fantastic. Then I read The Duke Who Didn't by Courtney Milan, and this was a really good read as well. This is a 4-star read. So The Duke Who Didn't is this historical romance, and it's about this small town called Wedgeford, and Wedgeford is basically full of like immigrants, and it's like this little immigrant town in Britain, and he basically owns the town of Wedgeford, but he's kind of a negligent duke, and nobody has ever seen him before, but he does own the property, he does own the land, whatever. So they always talk about the Duke Who Didn't and how he's so negligible and he doesn't ever pay attention to like collecting rent and all that good stuff. But basically the main premise of this is that we have this character named Chloe Fong, and Chloe, she is a very type A personality, and her father are attempting to create this kind of like sauce business. And so the story is taking place around this like festival that happens every year in Wedgeford, and her father are trying to get this sauce prepared so that they can like launch their business during the festival. And in the midst of her preparations, this guy that she really likes, his name is Jeremy. He is the Duke Who Didn't that they always talk about, that's very negligible in his duties. He's a duke. He doesn't really like being a duke. He doesn't like the duties of the dukedom, so he kind of just shirks all of his responsibilities, and he comes to Wedgeford sometimes just because he likes the people and he thinks they're cool, and he really is in love with Chloe, but he's kind of like, Chloe just feels like he can't be serious. She thinks that he's too goofy and too lighthearted, and she can't trust her emotions with him. So they have this like push and pull type of relationship, but it's just really cute. It's really sweet. It's not a whole lot of like plot. It's just like this small town romance vibe. There's a festival going on. Are they going to get together? We know that they are. It was just a cute time. It was really fun, and I really enjoyed the audiobook, so I definitely would recommend checking the audiobook out if you like to read this book, because it's just really sweet. It's really fun. I liked it. I think the familial dynamics were really cool. The relationship between Jeremy and Chloe was really cool because they have very opposites attract dynamic. I just thought everything about this was really fun, really sweet, really heartwarming, and I enjoyed it immensely. So yeah, highly recommend this. It was 4 stars. So after that, I read Neon Gods by Katie Robert and absolutely fucking despised it. I didn't like this book at all. It just was not good to me. In fact, it was pitiful. I would go as far as to say that. I really fucking hated this book. I know a lot of people really enjoy this book, and I don't want to shit on other people's enjoyment, but for me, it was just not good on any level that you could think about. For me, it was bad. So Neon Gods is a Hades and Persephone retelling. Persephone's mother, Demeter, tries to kind of sell her off into this arranged marriage with Zeus so that they can consolidate their power in the world of Neon Gods. There's this consortium called the 13, and I feel like Katie Robert makes it kind of unclear what the 13 are. Like, are they politicians? Are they like a mafia organization? Are they socialites? They're just like business owners. Like, what are they? That's made unclear, but the 13 are like these powerful people who control the city and blah blah blah. And one of the people in the 13 is Hades, but Hades, he only controls the lower city. No one's ever seen him. He's kind of this like scary boogeyman type of figure. But Persephone goes running to the lower city, hoping that she can seek asylum in the lower city and escape this marriage with Zeus that she does not want. So she runs to the lower city. She runs into Hades, and he accepts her into his loving arms, and he's going to protect her from the terrible Zeus and Demeter and blah blah blah. So let's get into what I didn't like about this book, because honestly there's nothing that I liked about it. So what I didn't like, I did not like either Persephone or Hades. There was nothing in particular wrong with them, but I just was not compelled by them. I didn't think they were interesting characters. There just was no depth to them, and I didn't give a single solitary fuck about them, so there was that. But in addition to just not caring about their characters, I also didn't really feel like they had chemistry, and I don't feel like the story really told me why they liked each other on any kind of emotional level or even on a sexual level, because I feel like something about the way that their scenes are described, or maybe just the fact that I didn't care about them as individual characters, I just really didn't buy their chemistry. I didn't feel the vibes between them. I felt like there was no tension between them, either sexually or romantically. Like, they just existed. They were just in each other's orbit, and then they were having sex, and then they're in love, and it's like, I don't care. I just didn't care about any of that stuff, and I didn't think that it was particularly well rendered, and it's a romance, and I didn't give a shit about it. So there's that. On the whole, I would say that I just didn't like it, period. But more than just not liking it, I hated it so deeply. Like, I feel like if I just didn't like it, I'd probably just give it like 2 stars usually. But the reason that this is a 1 star for me, and the reason that I am so like passionate about how much I dislike it, is because I feel like this is an amalgamation of every single fucking book that I've ever read from Katie Robert. Like, it's the same exact things, the same vibes, the same character dynamics, the same character personalities, the same stupid ass plot lines every single time. Like, I feel like I've read her do this at least 4 times already, and it's just boring as shit, and I hated it. Alright, so after reading Neon Gods, I really was feeling dangerously close to a slump, so I ended up going back to something that I knew I was going to enjoy, and that is Sweat and Soap, which is a romance manga, and it's about these 2 grown people. They work at a soap company. The girl, Asako, she works in like the financials department? Yeah, I think she works in like the financials department, the accounting department, and the guy, his name is Notori. Yeah, he works in product development. Basically, the main premise of the story is that Notori, he has a very, very keen sense of smell, and he smells Asako in the like lobby of their work building, and he thinks that she smells amazing. And so he wants to use her scent profile to build like the scent for their next product of the season. Is really weird, it's really random, but they decide to just like spend time together so that he can sniff her and build this scent profile so that he can make a product based off of it. It's very strange, very weird, very odd, but the series, just as it develops, gets so cute. Like, the first volume is really weird, I will grant you that, but as the story goes on, we just get to see Notori and Asako's relationship as it develops, and they're just so cute. So we get to see them in various stages of their relationship, from when they first start dating to when they move in together, and in these final few volumes we're seeing them like take next steps in life and like getting engaged and shit, and it's really cute. I absolutely love this series. I just think it's so sweet to see this relationship develop, and their relationship is so healthy, and they're so communicative, and it's just kind of amazing to see these 2 grown people be amazing and wonderful and in love with each other. It's just really cute, really sweet. I love the art style in it. I also think it's really funny, and it's just super duper heartwarming. So I would highly recommend it if you're looking for a romance manga series, particularly about like adults, because I feel like a lot of romance manga is like set in high school and stuff, and that's just not for me. So I am so pleased that I found this series this year, and I only have 1 more volume to read before it's all done. I also read something for school. So I read The Buckeye by Euripides for my mythology class. Basically, the premise of this is that Dionysus, his mother was, she had a relationship with Zeus, and that relationship resulted in Dionysus' birth. And so essentially, you know, Dionysus is this god, and he wants the people of his mother's city to worship him, but they don't actually believe that his mother was visited by a god. They think that she was just kind of lying, and that she was like sleeping around, and she just pretended that it was Zeus who fathered her child. So they refuse to acknowledge Dionysus as a god, or at least the ruler of the city refuses to acknowledge Dionysus as a god. So Dionysus says, I got something for y'all, and he basically drives all of the women crazy, and he takes them into the mountain to do like his Dionysian rituals. And this is basically just a story about Dionysus being a very petty bitch, and I absolutely fucking loved it. It was great. Maybe one of my favorite like plays that I have read in a really long time. So then after that, I entered my Onley James obsession, and Onley James has a series called Necessary Evils, and I became completely obsessed with it in the past 2 months, and it has just kind of taken over my life and my psyche. I love it so fucking much. So this series is about this guy named Thomas Mulvaney, and he is a psychologist, and he essentially has this really crazy idea that he is going to adopt a bunch of psychopathic children, and he's going to raise them to be these upstanding members of society, but he's also going to secretly raise them to be like serial killing vigilantes by night. It's kind of has like a Dexter sort of vibe, and so he basically was going to use them to kind of clean up the streets and kill terrible people who slip by the justice system, essentially. So each book follows one of the boys that he has adopted into his family, and it's about these people like finding love. So the first book, Unhinged, follows his son Adam, as Adam is kind of confronted by this guy Noah, and Adam has killed Noah's father. And so Noah, after years of kind of researching and investigating, he has found out that it was Adam who committed the murder, and he wants his revenge. Only he finds out that his father was actually a really, really terrible, horrible, god-awful person, and so he decides that maybe Adam is not so bad after all, and him and Adam start up a relationship. This series is very, very insta love, so they have like one interaction and then they both are kind of obsessed with each other, and I love insta love. I am a huge fan of insta love because I want to get to the good stuff immediately. You know what I'm saying? I am not a fan of slow burns. As long as you can make insta love like compelling and interesting, I'm gonna read it and I'm gonna love it, because I don't like waiting around. I'm a very impatient person. So I love that this series doesn't make me wait. The characters, they meet, they're instantly in love, bada bing, bada boom, everything's amazing. And so basically this book is about Noah and Adam being very unhinged together, and also investigating more things about Noah's father, because Noah's father was a very terrible person, and they're trying to bring down like this crime ring that his father was a part of. The second book in this series, Psycho, is about Thomas's son August, and so August is a professor. He's like a super duper genius. He studies like I don't know, like astrophysics or something insane. So he's a super genius professor at this university, and a new professor comes to work at his university named Lucas, and Lucas is like a criminal psychology professor, and he also happens to be clairvoyant. So basically they end up crossing paths on the quad, and Lucas gets this vision that like tells him that August is a psychopath and he murders people, and so somehow, some way, that compels Lucas and August to like be together. And I don't know, August just becomes immediately obsessed with Lucas. He thinks he's so fascinating, and he just wants to be with him for reasons kind of unknown, and he spends the rest of the book courting Lucas and trying to make Lucas his man, and he wants to settle down with him and have babies with him and stuff. And it's just very interesting and weird and unhinged and fun, and I loved it. And then I also read the third book in the series, which is called Moonstruck, and Moonstruck is about the brother Atticus, and Atticus is like this scientific researcher guy. He's a doctor and a scientific researcher, so he researches rare diseases as a day job, but on the side he also kills people. And the gag about his character is that he's supposedly really bad at killing people. He's not good at his job, and he's constantly really sloppy, and like he just is never really getting the job done, and his brothers always need to help him with something. So one day, while he's out on an assignment to kill some scumbag, he ends up meeting this guy named Jericho, who is killing the scumbag that he was supposed to be killing. And so they meet, and they're like, oh my god, you're a murderer? Me too. And they start like a friends with benefits to very quickly to lovers kind of thing. And I love Jericho and Atticus so fucking much. They are just the moment. They are the moment. I don't know how else to describe it. I know this series sounds absolutely like balls to the wall insane, but I fucking love this shit. I love the characters. I love the relationships. It's so fun. It's so funny. And I just love a good like bloody time. So it was interesting and it was fun to me, and I loved it. And it just really reminded me of Dexter, which is one of my favorite series of all time. So yeah, I had a great time reading it, an absolutely great time. And yeah, what more can I say? It was fantastic. I would recommend it if you are a person who enjoys insta love, or if you enjoy kind of like a good unhinged protagonist. This is for you. You know, this is really the one for you. And So speaking of unhinged protagonists, after that I read There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark, and this is about this character named Cole, and Cole is a very successful artist in San Francisco, but he is also secretly a serial killer, and not like the vigilante, you know, murdering for good reasons kind. He's just a serial killer. He kills people that he doesn't like, and he makes them into art pieces because he is a sculptor. He's a very sick, sadistic son of a bitch. And basically he meets this girl Mara at a art show, and he thinks that she's really pretty, but he also kind of thinks that she's like scummy and weird, and she looks homeless, and he kind of hates her, but he's kind of obsessed with her. And this story feels very like Joe Goldberg, you know, like it really feels like You, because he is stalking her. Like in the other series that I was talking about, in the Necessary Evil series, even though those characters are really weird and they are super duper unhinged, like there's never really a time when they are fully stalking their love interest. But in this is like a stalker romance. Cole is stalking Mara, and he is trying to trap her into this situation where she's kind of like dependent on him. But the gag is Mara knows that he's crazy, and she kind of doesn't care, and she's still really interested in him. So this is about them two. And also there's like a B plot that there's this other serial killer guy named Alistair that Cole hates, and they're kind of in this rivalry with each other. So there's that going on. But yeah, this is like a stalker romance, and it was entertaining in a thriller kind of way. I can't say that this was like a couple that I'm like, oh my god, I love them so much, but in a thriller aspect, it was fun and I had a good time. So I would give this like a 3.5 star. All right, let's talk about some of the shorter things that I read. So let's look on my little list. I read The Naughty List by Ellie McGregor, which is this is like a sexy Santa novella. That's really all I can say about it. It's basically like Santa, he shows up at this lady's house on Christmas Eve, and he's supposed to be delivering presents for her kids, but her kids happen to be visiting their dad for like the weekend or something. So it's just her at home, and Santa is like, oh my god, she's a baddie, and I need this MILF in my life right now. And so they end up like banging in his sleigh, and that's the whole novella. And I read it, and I think I gave it like 3 stars. It was fine. It was cute. The epilogue was very adorable, but it just like, I mean, it was what it was. You know what I'm saying? It was what it was. There's nothing else to say about it. So then I read 2 novellas, or 2 short stories, whatever you want to call them, by Harley Laurel. So the first one was called Paddled by Krampus, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's about this girl, and she's been naughty, so Krampus pays her a visit, and she gets paddled. It was an experience, and I certainly did read it. And it's basically about this girl, and she's like a witch, and she's an apprentice for this wizard, and she's just kind of like a shitty apprentice. She doesn't listen to him, and she's constantly stealing from him and like taking his potions even though she shouldn't be, and that's what she's getting punished for. And honestly, this is just between us, but I think that the book would have been 15 times sexier if it was just about her and the wizard that she was apprenticing for, because the vibes between them were very much giving. And the Krampus figure, he was a little bit too monster for me. You know, he was a little bit too inhuman, and I can't say that I was compelled by it, you know what I'm saying? But the main girl and the man she was apprenticing for, now that was a book I would read. And then the other Harley Laurel book that I read, not book, it's a short story. It's called The Museum. It's basically a part of this series called Filthy First Dates or something like that, and it's about this girl. There's a guy in her class, she's like in college, there's a guy in her class that she really likes. She's been flirting with him kind of all semester, and they're finally going on their first date. They go to this museum, and they're doing all types of freaky deaky public indecency type shit in the museum, and that's it. That's the novella. There's nothing else to say about it. But yeah, it very wild, very illegal stuff, very kinky, but it was an entertaining time. I certainly did read it, and yeah. And then I also read Barbarians Hope, which is like, I don't know, book 11 or something like that in the Ice Plain Barbarian series. Honestly, I have no idea why I decided to read this book. Actually, I do know why. I wanted to see what the book would look like, or what like the tropes would be like, or the vibe, if both of their main characters in the book were aliens. Because the main premise of Ice Planet Barbarians is that all of these human women, they crash land on this like alien planet, and then they're all getting coupled off with the aliens. I wanted to know if Ruby Dixon had ever written a story where the aliens were together, where like both parties in the relationship were an alien. And so this is basically that. It's about these two aliens, and they were like a couple, but they're having some hard times because they had a miscarriage, and the grief just kind of drove them apart. And so this is a story about them like reconciling and getting back together. But like, it was fine. It was a way to pass the time, and I read it. Yeah, I read it. I certainly did. So then after that, I read 2 books in the First Law series. So I read The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie, and this book is it's a war story. It's basically about a particular battle that's happening. There is a war between this country called the Union and the Northmen, and so the people in the North and the Union, they're warring with each other, and this book is about that war. But it's not even about the whole war. It's about like a particular week in the war, I want to say. And so many things happen in this, even though it's condensed to such like a small time frame, and it has like such a, I want to say like a small scale. It is so good. I love the way that Joe Abercrombie writes battle scenes, and I just love Joe Abercrombie's writing style in general. So I found this to be really engaging, really fun. I loved it, and I think I would give it 5 stars. Like, it was great. I read it in 2 days. It was compulsively readable. I couldn't stop. I just fucking loved it, like so much. It was great. It was fantastic. But all of the positive adjectives that I can think of, it was that. I enjoyed it very greatly. And then I read the very last First Law standalone, which is Red Country, and this is kind of like a fantasy western. It's about, like I mentioned, the main series of First Law is about this country called the Union, but Red Country, we follow the outskirts of that civilization. So there's the Union, and then there's the Far Country. And the Far Country is basically like the Grand Frontier, the Wild West sort of place. And so there's this character named Shy, and her siblings have recently been kidnapped. And so this is a story of her like revenge and her quest to get them back. This book was okay. I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. I really like Shy as a character. There's another main character named Temple. Really enjoyed him. But I can't say that I really cared all that much about the plot of this one. But like, it was still entertaining because Joe Abercrombie, you know, his writing style is engaging to me. I like the way that he writes his characters. I thought that Shy and South were really cool. Shy and South, that's not at all. Her name is Shy South. But I meant to say Shy and Temple were really cool characters. I really like their dynamic together, and I enjoyed that aspect of the book very much. But yeah, like I said, the plot it left a bit to be desired. And the final book that I have to tell you guys about is the Atlas 6. So the Atlas 6 is a dark academia fantasy, I guess you would say. So the Atlas 6 is about these 6 people who are invited to be initiates to the Alexandrian Society. And the Alexandrian Society is basically like this, it's basically like the Library of Alexandria is full of magical text. That's the premise of this. And so the Library of Alexandria has actually been preserved, and it's hidden away, and only a few, like a small collective of people, get the chance to look at it. And so we have all these people who are known as medians. They're all like some of the most powerful medians in the world, and they are introduced to the Alexandrian Society, and they are, you know, going to be initiated. And it's basically like magical grad school. Like, that's the vibe of it. And I don't know, I really like this book a whole lot. I thought that the plot was interesting. I think that there's like some very interesting plot elements in this, and I think that the main characters are all really fascinating people. I love Tristan, I love Parisa, I love Nico, I loved Raina, I loved Callum. I did not quite love Libby. The only reason I don't love Libby is okay. She's fine. There's nothing wrong with her. She's fine. The only reason I didn't love her is the fact that everybody is obsessed with her. And I didn't think she was like obsessed worthy. Like, if one person was obsessed with her, completely valid. I would have been all on Team Libby. But the fact that every single character in the book is obsessed with her, it just got to be a bit much. Like, okay, we get it. She's super powerful and cool. We know she's so pretty. Everyone wants to eat her box. I get it. But like, I don't I'm tired of hearing about it. You know what I'm saying? So nothing wrong with Libby, but I just found myself tired of hearing about her in other people's inner monologue, if that makes sense. Anyway, this was a really interesting read. I enjoyed it. I think that the prose is really interesting and cool and pretentious, and I love pretentious writing sometimes, so I enjoyed it. So I thought the prose was cool. I thought the characters were cool. I think the storyline is fascinating. I would be really interested to read this book after it gets like re-edited, because this is a self-published novel and I know that it is getting picked up by Tor and republished by them. So I wonder if they're going to like change anything, if the vibe will be different, if they're going to change anything about the structure of the book or whatever. I'd be fascinated. I definitely want to read the next book in the series because it's a really interesting world. The way that the magic works is fascinating, but I would say that the magic is not like a huge factor. I would say this is a very like psychological fantasy, if that makes any sense. But it was really cool. I loved it. I would highly recommend it. I definitely think that it kind of lived up to the hype for me. I get why so many people are obsessed with it, and I'm glad that I ended up reading it before the year was out. So yeah, that's all the books that I read in November and December. Hopefully you liked hearing about them. Let me know if you're interested in reading any of them, or if you have read them, what were your thoughts on them? I'd love to hear all about that. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will see you all in my next one. Bye, you guys.